Before we start, just a quick reminder to hit that subscribe button. Only 2% are subscribed. At 1,000 subscribers, I'll be posting a special video. The crash hit first, then my kid's scream ripped through the hallway. I dropped my mug, stepped on the shards, and ran upstairs barefoot. I am Sarah, 34, and that was the exact second everything tilted. I did not know it yet, but I was already choosing sides. Lily knelt in front of her desk, both hands in her hair. Her chair lay on its side, one wheel still spinning in place. The monitor was face down, spiderweb cracks across the glass like punishment. Cables hung loose from the console, and something in me just lurched. For a moment, I honestly thought we had been robbed by someone vicious. Lily looked up at me with this empty, stunned expression that hurt. Her lips moved but no sound came out, just this dry breath. I grabbed her shoulders, checked her arms, checked her face for marks. No bruises, no blood, only shaking and a red line on her wrist. That wrist line would haunt me later when I replayed everything. "She did it." The words finally burst out of Lily like she had been choking. "She did it, Mom." She stomped on it and laughed. Her voice cracked on the last word and my stomach flipped over. There was only one she that made sense in this house. Zoe leaned on the doorframe behind me, arms folded like a barricade. She watched us without moving, like this was a show she disliked. Her foot nudged a broken controller piece, sent it skidding under the bed. "I told her I was just looking," she said, almost bored, not even blinking. "Stuff breaks when people freak out, not my problem." I turned and stared at her, and time did a weird stutter. You know that moment when your brain searches for a softer version? Anything that makes it an accident, a misunderstanding, a bad joke. Nothing came, just that loose shrug and Lily shivering beside me. That was the second click of the night, right after the crash. "Zoe, look at this." My voice came out low, thin, not the yelling I expected. I pointed at the destroyed setup, my hand shaking so badly it annoyed me. This did not just fall over, someone went at it on purpose. I needed her to deny it. I realized that now. I wanted an escape hatch. She rolled her eyes and finally pushed off the frame, 2 slow steps in. "If you care that much about plastic, maybe check your priorities," she muttered. She stepped over a cable and almost kicked the console again on purpose. Lily flinched hard, like she expected another stomp right then and there. That flinch hit me harder than any confession could have. In that instant, I stopped thinking about money and started thinking about safety. Not big dramatic safety, but the small daily kind kids are supposed to have. The safety of knowing your stuff stays yours, your room stays yours. The safety of not worrying someone will destroy the one thing you love. I felt something settle in my chest, heavy and unforgiving. "Back up." The word snapped out before I even planned it, sharp and automatic. Zoe's eyebrows lifted, this little mocking arc that said I was ridiculous. She did step back, but only half an inch, purely to make a point. I saw my reflection in the busted screen, and I looked furious. Lily clung to my sleeve now, fingers twisted in the fabric like a lifeline. She whispered that she heard stomping, then laughter, then another stomp. Her eyes never left Zoe, like she was waiting for another attack. I asked her to stop and she called me a pathetic leech, Lily breathed. Her voice shook so badly that every word scraped my nerves raw. I know I should have slowed down here and taken a breath. I should have counted to 10, used some parenting technique from a book. Instead, everything narrowed to Lily's face and the wreck at her feet. There is a version of me that handled this like a saint. You are not reading that version right now. Did you smash it? I did not add anything gentle, not sweetheart, not be honest, nothing. The question hung between us like a dare that could still be refused. Zoe's mouth curled, not quite a smile, more like a challenge. "If I did, what then?" she asked, and that was the last door closing. I swear my vision did a quick tunnel right then and there. I saw years of biting my tongue and smoothing things over. I saw Lily saving every small dollar for that setup, step by step. I saw Zoe watching every new thing come into this house like an attack. And I saw my husband trying to pretend all of that was normal. "You are done here tonight." The sentence landed before my brain finished assembling the consequences. "Grab a bag and go stay with your mom for now." Lily gasped, Zoe snorted, and some quiet part of me went, holy crap. This was not a threat anymore, it was an order and I could not take it back. You're kicking me out over a toy. Zoe laughed once, this harsh sound that did not match her age at all. She looked around the wrecked room like it proved her point perfectly. Guess we know who the favorite is, right? She added, eyes on Lily. Lily dropped her gaze to the floor like she had done something disgusting. I stepped between them without even realizing I moved, heart pounding hard. Do not talk to her, I said, and my voice finally rose. Go pack a bag, Zoe, before I lose whatever patience I have left. Her nostrils flared, little detail I remember way too clearly. She opened her mouth to throw something else, then footsteps pounded up the stairs. My husband appeared in the doorway, hair messy, phone still in his hand. He stopped, took in the broken equipment, the girls, my posture. What the hell happened? He asked, and his voice went tight around the edges. He stepped over a cable and lifted the ruined monitor with both hands. His jaw clenched so hard I heard his teeth grind, and I weirdly hoped he would finally explode. Lily started talking too fast, words tripping over each other in panic. Zoe cut across her, throwing in corrections, tiny barbs, little twisted versions. My husband's gaze bounced between them, then landed on me for an answer. I realized in that second, whoever spoke last would probably win the story. So I did something I am still conflicted about now. I watched the aftermath, I said, because technically that part was true. I see exactly how targeted this was, and I am not debating that. I pointed at Lily's clenched hands, then at Zoe's detached posture near the door. You know this is not some random accident, you can feel it too. I pushed him to choose, because I felt pushed every day before that. He rubbed his face once, slow, buying time that I did not want to give. Everyone calm down, he said, which always meant I should calm down. It's broken, that sucks, but we do not throw kids out over things. The word things sliced straight into Lily's chest, I saw it land. She backed up 3 steps like she had just been downgraded to clutter. Zoe latched onto that one word like a rope thrown her way. Yeah, it's just stuff, she said, almost relieved, almost triumphant. Maybe now she will learn not to rub it in my face. She nudged the fallen chair with her toe, small hostile gesture. If I stopped there, maybe we would be in therapy right now, not here. I am not raising one kid to walk on eggshells around another, I snapped. Every filter burned off inside me, all at once, no slow fade. If you smash her things on purpose, you do not sleep here tonight. I looked at my husband, not Zoe, because his reaction mattered more. Not under my roof, not while I am responsible for her. He stared like he had never seen me before, or maybe like he finally had. You're choosing a console over my daughter, he said, and there it was. That line had probably been sitting in his head for months already. You're seriously throwing her out in the middle of the night. He sounded more shocked than angry, which somehow hurt me even more. I know this sounds brutal written out so plainly, I get that. I know internet strangers love to type, "This is insane," under posts. Trust me, I have replayed the scene 100 different ways since then. Sometimes I imagine myself breathing, stepping back, calling a therapist instead. But in that room with that wreck, I felt cornered in my own home. You can come with her if you think I'm that unreasonable. The words came out quieter than I expected, which made them worse. Go stay at your ex's place, figure out what line you're okay with. His shoulders dropped like someone cut a string he needed to stand upright. Lily's grip on my sleeve tightened until my fingers started to go numb. For a few seconds nobody moved, just breathing and little broken sounds. Then Zoe turned on her heel, walked down the hall and slammed her door. Drawers opened and shut hard, hangers scraped, something hit a wall. My husband followed slower, half turning back toward me, then giving up. I stayed with Lily in the wrecked room, feeling like the villain and the guard. Lily whispered that maybe she could sleep in the living room, just tonight. She did not want to be alone in the room that felt attacked. I pulled her close and promised her she would not lose everything she loved. I promised things I had no idea how to keep yet. Her shoulders shook against me, tiny tremors that would not stop. Zoe came out with a backpack and a stuffed duffel, jaw locked. She walked past us without a glance, perfume and anger trailing after her. My husband grabbed his keys, told Lily to stay put, told me nothing. The door opened then shut, and the house sank into this strange, thick quiet. From Lily's room you could still hear one last drawer rattling in my mind. They were gone maybe 20 minutes, I honestly lost track of time. I stood in that doorway, looking at the mess we never deserved. I picked up broken plastic pieces with bare hands, then stopped midway. Fixing the room would not fix the line I had just drawn. Some choices you cannot sweep into a trash bag and forget. When my husband finally came back alone, his expression told me nothing good. He walked past us straight to the kitchen, then back again. "We'll talk tomorrow," he said, eyes on the floor, voice flat. He grabbed a spare blanket and headed for the couch without another word. I knew then that tonight was not just about a destroyed console. Lily slept in my bed that night, finally drifting off near sunrise. I lay awake staring at the ceiling, listening for a car that never came. My feet still hurt from the glass, my throat burned from swallowed words. Every time I blinked I saw two images, side by side, refusing to leave. Lily on the floor holding her head, and Zoe at the door not even blinking. My phone buzzed nonstop on the nightstand before the sun came up. I watched it light up over and over, number blocked, screen shaking on the wood. Lily still slept pressed against my arm, breathing uneven, one hand on my shirt. I knew exactly who it was before I even reached for it. I also knew answering would blow the quiet apart. I slipped my arm free and grabbed the phone fast before it rattled again. The call stopped just as my thumb hovered, then started right back. I hit accept and walked into the hallway, door almost closed behind me. The voice came in hot, no greeting, just pure attack. "What did you do to my child?" I leaned against the wall, bare feet cold, heart pounding in my throat. "You might want to ask what she did here first." I kept my tone low, not gentle, not screaming, somewhere sharp in between. "That's interesting," she snapped. You could hear the smirk through the speaker. "Because she came home crying that you threw her out at midnight." That line twisted my stomach because it was not fully wrong. This is the part where I wish I could tell you she exaggerated. She did a bit, but the base story stayed ugly. "I told her to stay somewhere else after what she pulled," I answered. "If she left crying, that started with what she did upstairs." "You traumatized her," she fired back, word choice very deliberate, like a weapon. "You ripped her away from her father, from her space, from stability." She dragged that last word out like she owned it legally. I stared at the family photo on the hallway shelf, suddenly ridiculous. "Your stability came in here and trashed my kid's only safe thing." "She told me it was an accident," came immediately, no pause, no doubt. "Your daughter flipped out, started screaming, and you believed her over Zoe." That version almost made me laugh, not because it was funny. I pressed my thumb into the drywall until it hurt instead. "If that was an accident, then I'm the president." There was a short silence on the line, then a new blow. "You have wanted her gone from day one, I see it now." Convenient excuse, right? One broken game and you finally get your clean house. I felt my face heat up even alone in the hallway. Because a tiny guilty part of me had wanted distance, not like this. I could hear movement downstairs, cabinets opening, something set down hard. He was awake, of course he was, probably listening to everything through the ceiling. I turned slightly so my voice would not carry straight down. "I don't want her gone," I forced out, and that part was true. "I want boundaries that mean something, not just pretty sentences." "Here's my boundary," she answered, voice suddenly very calm and focused. "You do not discipline my daughter ever again, not like that. If she stays overnight there again, it's on my terms or not at all." Underneath that calm tone sat a very clear threat. I heard it more clearly now than I did in the moment. "You're free to keep her away," slipped out before I could stop it. The second it left my mouth, I knew I had messed up. Because that gave her exactly the opening she wanted with him. "She will," she replied, quick, satisfied, like a door slamming shut somewhere. "Until a judge hears what you did, you will not see her again." The call cut before I could respond, not even a click. I lowered the phone slowly and stared at the blank screen. I knew she loved to posture, but this time the threat felt heavier. Back then I told myself she was bluffing just to keep functioning. Now replaying it, I hear strategy in every single word. "Who was that?" His voice came from the bottom of the stairs, flat, already tired. He stood there in sweats, arms crossed, phone still in his hand. We just watched each other for a long second like strangers. "The person you left with last night," I answered, and my tone came out harsh. He rubbed his forehead once, brief, like it actually hurt to look at me. "She called me too," he said, still stuck on formal pronouns somehow. "She told me you bragged about kicking Zoe out like it was nothing." I barked out a short laugh that sounded worse than any scream. "Right, because I love creating chaos on weekday nights." He stepped onto the first stair, closer. Each step careful, like approaching a cornered dog. "Did you actually throw her out or not?" he asked, no decoration. "I told her to pack and go stay at her mother's for now." I watched his jaw clench at the word told, not asked. "That's not the same as tossing her on the street," I added, weaker. "She says you pointed at the door and said get out or else." He was not shouting, which made every word feel heavier somehow. "She says Lily was behind you and the two of you ganged up." That mental picture made my chest tighten, because from her side it probably looked like that. In that moment, I realized we were no longer sharing the same memory. Before I could answer, Lily peered through the cracked bedroom door behind me. Her hair stuck in random directions, eyes wide, cheeks still puffy. She looked from him to me, then to the phone in my hand. "Is she coming back?" she whispered, and my heart dropped again. She meant Zoe, but she also meant all of this. He looked up at her, shoulders sagging a little, expression torn between guilt and anger. "We're figuring it out," he said finally, and his voice softened for her. He climbed the rest of the stairs and kissed the top of her head. For a tiny second, we looked like a normal family dealing with a mess. Then his eyes shifted back to me, and that illusion just snapped. Lily stepped aside so he could pass into the room from last night. He stood in the doorway and took everything in under real daylight. The broken gear, the toppled furniture, the scattered pieces in corners. He crouched and picked up something small, turning it between his fingers. I watched his shoulders stiffen, then relax, then stiffen again, like he kept changing verdicts. She stayed quiet while he surveyed the damage, eyes on his shoes. I watched her bite her thumbnail, then drop her hand fast, old habit. "I don't want her back in here," she muttered, barely audible, more to herself than anyone. The way she said it made my stomach clench, not from satisfaction. It sounded less like anger and more like pure fear. He glanced over his shoulder at her, still knelt near the ruined desk. "Nobody is coming in here without rules," he answered, choosing words carefully. He looked at me when he said rules, like I was the problem. "I need to talk to her in person before anything else happens." That meant Zoe, not Lily, and we both knew it. "Are you going over there now?" I asked, already knowing the answer. "After I shower," he replied, turning away, which felt like its own answer. He headed for the bathroom without waiting for more discussion. The air between us felt thick with stuff we left unsaid on purpose. I had this stupid impulse to ask him if he wanted breakfast. Lily moved closer to her desk, shoulders hunched, eyes stuck on the wreck. "Can we just throw it away?" she asked, voice flat, no emotion. That scared me more than the sobbing from the night before. "At least not yet," I replied, keeping my tone even for her. "We might need proof of what happened, just in case things escalate." "Proof for who?" she asked, lifting her head a little, confusion creeping in. "Adults," I answered, which was a lazy way of saying lawyers and judges. Back then I still believed it would not reach that stage. "Just trust me for now," I added, and that sounded weak even to me. Her jaw tightened, but she nodded, like she had run out of energy to argue. She picked up a cracked piece of plastic and turned it over slowly. "It looked so cool yesterday," she murmured, more to the wreck than to me. I watched her swallow hard and place the fragment on the desk. "Can I stay in your room again tonight?" she asked, still not meeting my eyes. That question told me exactly how unsafe she still felt in her own space. From the bathroom, water started running, loud enough to cover half the house. It felt like a wall between us and him, like he needed that barrier. I wanted to march over, yank the door open, demand we talk. Instead, I sat on Lily's mattress and patted the spot beside me. I chose comforting her over confronting him, and that choice changed the rest of the day. She sat, leaned against me, and let out a slow, shaky breath. "Did you regret it?" she asked suddenly, catching me completely off guard. Throwing her out, she clarified when I did not answer right away. The honest answer twisted in my throat before I forced it out. I regret how it happened, not the line itself. That is the closest I have come to the truth with anyone so far. Because the line about staying away after that kind of stunt still stands. But the timing, the delivery, the middle of the night aspect. All of that plays in my head now like a bad replay. In that moment though, I just hoped it sounded steady enough for her. Downstairs, a cabinet door slammed and made both of us jump. Water had stopped, so he was moving around again, prepping to go. I don't want to be here when she comes back. "Okay," Lily whispered. I felt my spine lock at the word when, not if. That tiny difference told me what she believed about his choice. I walked her to the bathroom and nudged her inside to get ready. "Brush your teeth and splash water on your face," I instructed out of habit. She gave a small nod and closed the door behind her. I stood alone in the hallway, listening to running water again. Everyone was washing something off that morning, except me. When I reached the kitchen, he was stuffing his wallet into his back pocket. Keys on the counter, phone beside a half-poured glass, motion tight and quick. He glanced up then down like contact physically hurt. "I'm going to see her," he announced, like I had not heard his plan already. "She needs to hear that she still has a parent in her corner." The jab landed exactly where he aimed it, right under my ribs. "So Lily doesn't?" I asked, voice rising before I could reel it back. I saw his eyes flare then flatten, like he shut something down inside. "That's not what I said," he responded, pacing one step to the side. "That's what it sounds like from where I'm standing," I pushed, unable to stop. He picked up his keys and finally looked me dead in the face. "If you expect me to agree with throwing her out like that, I can't. Not without at least trying to repair things with her first." His fingers drummed against the keyring, little nervous tick I knew well. "I'm not choosing between them, no matter how this looks right now." I hated how desperate I sounded next, but I said it anyway. "I'm not asking you to choose between kids, I'm asking you to choose a standard. A basic rule that no one destroys someone else's stuff out of spite." His mouth tightened at the word spite, like I was branding Zoe. "You already turned her into the villain," he answered, and my chest burned. "That's the story she is feeding you," I shot back too fast. "That I've been plotting to get rid of her since day one." He hesitated at that, only a heartbeat, but I saw it. "She feels pushed out," he replied, quieter, like he half believed both sides. "And after last night, I get why she thinks that way." Lily stepped into the doorway just then, backpack half zipped, shoes in hand. She looked smaller than usual, like she had shrunk overnight. "Are you leaving?" she asked him, eyes flicking between us nervously. "Just for a bit," he answered, stepping closer to wrap an arm around her. "I'll be back later, you and Mom stay home today, okay?" She didn't hug him back, not really, her hands hung at her sides. When he pulled away, she stared at the floor instead of his face. "Can you text me when you get there?" she asked, voice thin. He nodded and promised, then glanced at me like waiting for permission. I gave a short jerk of my head, and that was the closest we got to agreement. He walked out, door closing gently, no slam, which almost hurt more. The quiet that followed felt heavy, not peaceful, more like a held breath. Lily slid her backpack down and leaned against the wall without speaking. "Are we in trouble?" she finally asked, and that broke something open in me. Not is she, not is he, but we, all of us lumped together. I pulled out a chair and motioned for her to sit across from me. "We're not the ones under review here," I replied, slower, choosing each word. But I also knew that was not entirely true, not with her mother involved now. "We're going to document everything that happened so nothing gets twisted." I grabbed a notebook and pen, and she watched me like this was homework from hell. "Do I have to write too?" she asked, eyebrows pulling together in worry. "Only what you remember from yesterday, no more, no less." My voice sounded weirdly calm, like I had put on a mask. Inside, I was already hearing courtroom words, even though nothing had been filed. That's how afraid of her mother I actually was, even then. Lily stared at the blank page for a long moment, then started. Short sentences, shaky letters, stopping often to rub her eyes. Every time her hand paused, I wanted to tell her to forget it. To just let it all fade and hope everyone cooled down eventually. But the call from earlier echoed in my head like an alarm. By the time she finished, my phone buzzed with a new message. Unknown number again, but the text preview showed Zoe's name. I opened it with my stomach in knots, bracing for another attack. Instead, it was one line that hit harder than any insult. "Thanks for proving I never mattered in that house." I stared at the words and felt my throat close up for a beat. This is where it gets messy, because part of me wanted to answer. To tell her she did matter, despite everything, despite last night. Another part of me wanted to tell her she crossed a line. In the end, I did the worst thing possible. I froze. I locked the phone and put it face down on the table. Lily watched the movement, eyes wide, sensing. There was more drama. "Is that her?" she asked, fingers curling around the notebook edge. "Yeah," I answered, nothing more because I had no good follow-up. Choosing silence put one more crack in whatever trust remained. Looking back, that morning did more damage than the actual smash. The breakage you can sweep up and replace, painful but simple. The stories, the phone calls, the quiet choices, those sink in deeper. He drove off to comfort one girl while I tried to protect the other. And somewhere between those two missions, our family line split for good. The garage door rattled up and Lily froze halfway through a step. She had her backpack on again, shoes by the front mat ready to bolt. I watched her grip the strap with both hands like it might drag her. "Do you want to stay in your room or out here?" I asked. Her answer would tell me how bad she expected this to be. She didn't move for a second, then shuffled behind the couch instead. "Here," she whispered, small, like she was hiding from a storm. She could still see the entryway from that spot if she leaned. I stayed by the counter, notebook half open, pen still uncapped. My chest felt tight enough that every breath sounded loud to me. The door from the garage swung in and he stepped over the threshold. No Zoe behind him, no overnight bag, just him with that drained face. His eyes landed on me, then slid past to the hall toward Lily's room. I swear I saw him flinch at that direction before he looked away. That tiny flicker made my stomach twist with a bit of hope. "Where is she?" I asked, more direct than I planned, no warm-up. He dropped his keys in a jerky motion and rubbed the bridge of his nose. "At her mom's," came out clipped, like each syllable cost him something. "On purpose or because you left her there?" I pushed because I couldn't stop. He exhaled hard, and that sound already told me this was not good. "She doesn't want to come back here," he answered, shoulders sagging. I felt that hit deeper than I expected, even after everything she did. "Her mom is fine with that, obviously," he added, mouth twisting. He grabbed a glass from the drying rack and filled it halfway. Didn't drink, just held it, which somehow made me more nervous. Lily edged around the couch, staying close to it like it protected her. "Did you talk to her?" she asked, voice thready but clear enough. He turned toward her and softened immediately, like muscle memory. "Yeah," he replied, swallowing whatever else wanted to come out first. "She's really upset, kiddo. She feels like she got thrown away." Thrown away. I saw Lily's face twitch at those words, like they scraped something raw. "Her choice to break my stuff then," she muttered, fingers twisting her sleeve. It came out sharper than normal for her, almost resentful, which startled me. There it was, the first jab from Lily that wasn't just fear. He caught that too, eyes narrowing just a little, like storing it. "Look," he started, setting the glass down without drinking at all. "Her mom already called someone this morning before I even got there." My throat clenched because I knew what someone usually meant in that context. "Someone who?" I asked, and I hated how small I sounded. "A mediator or something like that," he answered, waving a hand vaguely. "Not court yet, but she wants everything formal so there are records." That word made something heavy settle between my shoulder blades. "We're not criminals," slipped out of me before I could filter it. I yelled, "Yes, I kicked her out for the night, yes, but come on." "She told them you threatened to put her on the street," he responded. He watched my reaction very closely, like he needed to see guilt or outrage. "She told them you have been targeting her for months and last night proved it." I actually laughed, one rough sound that did not feel like humor. "Did you at least mention the hardware she stomped on?" I asked, jaw tight. He braced his hands on the counter, head bowed for a heartbeat. "I brought it up," he said, quieter. "She claims it fell while they were fighting and Lily lost it." He looked at me finally, and there it was, the doubt I dreaded. Can you blame me for questioning both sides now? That hurt more than if he had outright called me a liar. You saw the room, I reminded him, trying to keep my tone steady. You heard them, you know that story doesn't match what was in there. He winced at like I was accusing him of treason. I know what I saw, he answered. I don't know what happened second by second. Lily hunched more, eyes flicking between us like watching a tennis match. You think I threw my own stuff, she blurted, hands flying up. I had never heard that edge in her voice, all hurt and disbelief. He looked at her fast, eyes wide, caught off guard by the challenge. No, he replied immediately, and that at least sounded honest. Then maybe act like it, she shot back Sue. Surprising both of us. There it was again, that tiny new spine she had never used on him. My first instinct was to calm her, smooth it over, fix the tone. My second instinct was to let her speak, because she deserved to. For once I let the second instinct win. He opened his mouth, closed it, then shifted his weight from foot to foot. I'm trying to keep everyone from getting destroyed here, he said. Her mom is blowing this up at a level that scares me. He tapped the counter once hard, then dragged his hand back. She already set up an appointment with a family counselor next week. That part actually surprised me in a different way. Wait, I cut in, palms pressing into the edge of the island. You agreed to counseling with her for us without asking me anything. He straightened, defensive, like I had accused him of some betrayal. What was I supposed to do, say no and prove her point? It's funny, I used to think therapy was always the mature answer. In theory, this sounded reasonable, helpful, even grown up. In this context, with threats and twisted stories, it felt like a trap. Who's paying, I asked, because that detail would show control. Her, he replied, and my gut clenched even harder. Lily stared at us like we were speaking in code. What's a counselor going to do? She asked, voice quiet, almost monotone. Make us all talk together maybe, he answered, looking at her again. Figure out how to move forward without more damage, at least that's the idea. He left out the part where one adult controlled the narrative and the bill. Do I have to go? She asked, fingers tapping the back of a chair. Her eyes shone, but she refused to let anything spill out. If they ask for you, yeah, probably, he replied, expression strained. I watched the way she recoiled at that, tiny but very clear. She had just learned strangers might now judge her version too. My chest burned with this urge to shield her from all of it. You are not dragging her into some joint session with Zoe yet, I warned. Not before we have someone neutral hear her side alone. He frowned, like that suggestion had not crossed his mind once. That's not how her mom pitched it, he muttered, almost under his breath. There it was. Her mom, again, designing the battlefield while we scrambled inside our kitchen. You realize she's choreographing this, I snapped, hands lifting midair. She gets the professional, she gets the first impression, she gets the story. He bristled at the word choreographing, probably because he knew it fit. He looked exhausted, and I mean really worn down around the edges. I'm aware she has an agenda, he answered, eyes closing for a beat. I'm also aware she holds all the cards with Zoe right now. His voice dropped on that last part, thick with something like shame. So I'm trying not to make things worse for my kid. There it was again too. His kid, my kid, the split built right into the language. Lily is your kid too, I reminded him more softly than before. He met my gaze, and for a second something cracked in his expression. I know, he whispered, that's what keeps me up at night. Lily backed away from the conversation like it was a hot stove. I'm going to my room, she murmured, eyes fixed on the floorboards. She didn't wait for either of us to argue, she just turned and left. Her door clicked shut, not loud but final enough to sting. We both listened to that sound, and neither of us moved. Her mother wants to file something if we don't cooperate, he spoke again. That pulled my attention back hard, like a snap. File what? I asked, because I needed that word out loud. Some kind of complaint about emotional harm, maybe more, I don't know yet. He rubbed his neck, avoiding my eyes, which told me he knew more than that. You need to stop playing telephone for her, I said, voice low. Every sentence you bring back from that house hits ours like a grenade. He winced at that choice of word, but he didn't argue the effect. She claims Zoe has texts showing Lily mocking her for weeks, he added. That new piece landed differently because we had not heard that before. I blinked, thrown off balance for a second. What texts? I asked, pulse picking up again. She showed me screenshots, he answered, pulling his phone out quickly. Some messages from mutual friends and a group chat with them in it. He opened his photos and turned the screen so I could see. I expected pure lies, maybe fake accounts, something easy to dismiss. Instead, I saw Lily's username next to short replies that were not kind. Sarcastic comments, eye roll emojis, one or two digs about attention seekers. Nothing brutal on its own, but stacked together they looked ugly. My stomach dropped because I recognized her way of trying to blend in. I didn't know about these, I admitted, that part hitting my pride. I should have monitored more. I thought she kept to herself on. Lined. I traced one line on the screen without touching it. This looks bad out of context, but it still doesn't excuse smashing anything. I had to steady my voice at the end to keep it from shaking. He studied my face like he was searching for the tiniest lie. I'm not saying it justifies anything, he replied, more careful now. But if this goes to a counselor or beyond, they will see this. He slid the phone back into his pocket, like burying the evidence. We have to be ready for them to paint a picture we don't like. There was a beat where I could feel the fork in the road. Either we teamed up against outside spin or we stayed split. Then we get ahead of it, I said, choosing fast because I had to. We tell someone ourselves before her mother hands over a curated story. The word curated made his mouth twitch, like he recognized the accuracy. He studied the counter, then nodded slowly once. I'll ask around, find someone not connected to either side, he answered. Not the person she picked, someone through our insurance or whatever. That was the first thing he suggested that felt like actual partnership. It did not erase everything, but it loosened something in my chest. Before we could dig into how or when, his phone vibrated again. He glanced down and his face closed off in an instant. It's her, he muttered, thumb hovering, jaw tight, eyes darkening. He accepted the call and turned slightly away out of habit or instinct. I heard the muffled rush of another woman's voice pouring through. No, I told you I'm back home, he said, voice suddenly clipped. I'm not bringing Zoe over today, we need to slow down. Pause, then his expression hardened, shoulders going stiff. That wasn't the agreement, he added, then his eyes flicked toward me. So there had been an agreement I never heard about. I felt my pulse jump into my throat again. My mind raced, imagining worst case after worst case. She's not walking into a house where she's unwelcome, came from the phone. He shut his eyes like he couldn't believe what he was hearing. Stop using that word, he told her, voice dropping low. He listened longer, then pinched the bridge of his nose hard. No, I'm not choosing between them, he repeated, that old line returning. That's exactly what you're trying to force, he added, more heat now. He ended the call mid-sentence, not letting her finish whatever was next. We both stared at the darkened screen like it might light back up. What agreement? I asked, because subtlety was dead at this point. He sighed heavy, like he aged a decade in that minute. She wanted Zoe to come here this weekend for a controlled conversation, he answered. She thinks facing it head-on will fix everything fast before lawyers. He spread his hands helpless, like this was all some scripted event. A controlled conversation with who controlling it? I asked, eyes narrowing. Her, I answered myself, because obviously. He didn't argue, which told me enough. I told her we needed time, he went on, voice barely above normal. She thinks time just gives you space to poison Lily against Zoe Moore. That stung in a different way, because I suddenly imagined how I must look from outside. The protective mom, the one with the kid whose things got wrecked. The one telling the story first at school, maybe, to friends, to whoever. Did you defend me at all? I asked, softer, afraid of the answer. He hesitated long enough that I already knew before he spoke. I told her you were angry and acting on impulse, he replied. That you're not usually like that you've been stressed. He meant it as a favor, but it felt like a character witness in a trial. You made me sound unstable, I said slowly, connecting the dots. An emotional stepmom flipping out over property, great narrative. He stepped forward, palms up, like he could smooth the air itself. Her story was you screamed and threw Zoe out for fun, he insisted. I tried to land somewhere that made you sound human, not monstrous. It's weird how human can still feel like an insult in moments like that. I believed he thought he was helping, but the damage still sat there. Upstairs, Lily's door opened again and footsteps padded toward the stairs. She appeared halfway down, hair pulled up, face blotchy but calmer. "I heard my name," she said, gripped tight on the railing. We both looked up, two guilty adults caught mid-argument. "Are they making me go to that meeting with Zoe?" she asked. The fact she called it a meeting told me how this sounded to her now. Not family time, not reconciliation, an appointment, an obligation. "No one is dragging you anywhere today," I answered, mouth set. My eyes cut to him, silently daring him to contradict me in front of her. He held my gaze, then slowly nodded. "Not today," he confirmed, shoulders dropping a little as he said it. "I'm not bringing her over until we figure out ground rules." T8. That phrase made Lily's shoulders relax the tiniest bit. "What kind of rules?" she asked, still wary, still braced. "Ones that keep everyone intact," I answered, hoping I could deliver that. "I wish I could tell you this was our turning point upward. That we rallied together, called a fair professional, reset the house. But this was more like a pause before the next swing. Because by the time evening rolled around, a new message came in. Not from him, not from her, from a name we didn't know yet. I was cleaning up dishes when my email pinged on the counter. Subject line short, very official, with a counseling center stamped on it. I opened it expecting spam and felt my spine go rigid instead. They had our names, all three, and a proposed date for a joint session. Requested by Zoe's mother, due to concerns regarding emotional well-being in the home. I read that line twice, then again, like it might change if I stared. Every word was polite, polished, calm, and pointed straight at us. I could almost hear her voice underneath, using nicer vocabulary this time. I forwarded it to him without adding a single comment. Then I stood there gripping the sink, realizing the story had left our walls. His chair scraped back from the table so hard it jolted Lily upstairs. I watched him stare at the email on his phone without blinking. "You forwarded this?" he finally asked, thumb hovering above the screen. "Yeah," I answered, leaning against the counter so I would not pace. "If I ignore it, it still exists." He read the header again, jaw twitching while his eyes moved. "Joint session, all parents and both kids present, recommended as soon as possible." He read that line out loud like he was testing the taste of it. She went straight to them before we even agreed to anything. I could feel my pulse in my ears while he processed it. Footsteps creaked on the stairs, slow and hesitant, then paused halfway. "Is that about us?" Lily called down, voice thin but determined. I looked up and saw only her hand on the rail. "Yes," I answered, because lying would blow up in my face later. That one word made her move the rest of the way down. She reached the bottom step and hugged the wall, watching both of us. "Are they making us talk together?" she asked, eyes on his phone. "Some counselor wants a big conversation with everyone," he replied, shoulders tight. "It's not technically mandatory yet, but skipping looks pretty bad." That last part was aimed at me, not her, and we both knew it. Lily swallowed and rubbed her wrist, a nervous habit she picked up recently. "I don't want to sit in a room with her," she said quietly. She did not even say Zoe's name, which said enough. "I can't talk in front of her without freaking out," she added. The way she looked at me then felt like a plea for rescue. My first instinct was to fire off a refusal email immediately. Something firm, something clear, something that screamed absolutely not. "I don't want them deciding who we are from one meeting," I muttered. He pushed his chair back in and stood, palms flat on the table. "Skipping lets them write that story without hearing us," he countered. "You trust someone picked by your ex?" I asked, brow lifting. "She requested them, they still have licenses and rules," he replied. That message copied both of us and used neutral language. He pointed at the screen like that proved fairness somehow. In their eyes, we're just two sides of one mess. He was not wrong, and I hated that part. "I'm not dragging Lily in there as a prop," I said. "If we go, she speaks on her terms, not theirs." Lily's head snapped up at that, surprise cutting through fear for a second. She was not used to me saying those decisions out loud with him listening. "What if I write things first?" she suggested, voice shaking but steady. So if I freeze, they can still read what I think. That idea actually impressed me and broke my heart at the same time. Yeah, I answered, nodding slow, we can bring something written. I glanced at him, waiting to see if he would shoot that down. He rubbed his chin, eyes unfocused, then gave a short nod. If it helps you talk, go for it, he told her. I don't want anyone forcing words out of you either. For a moment, we sounded like a team again, which almost hurt. Because I knew how fast that would vanish once Zoe appeared. He tapped the phone and pulled up the email again. They want a response by tomorrow, he murmured, scanning the signature. I can write back that we will attend one session only. The way he emphasized one told me he was trying to protect something too. After that, we decide if it continues. One session is still a lot, Lily whispered, hugging herself. If she starts making up stuff, do I have to sit quiet? No, I said quickly, maybe too fast. You can correct things or ask for a break or leave. I wish someone had told teenage me that in any hard room. I opened my laptop and pulled the email up on the bigger screen. He walked behind me and read over my shoulder, arms crossed tight. I'll draft the reply you can read before I send, I offered. He let out a slow breath and nodded, which felt like a truce. Fine, but we both sign mentally before this goes out. I typed while they watched, every word feeling like a landmine. Thank you for reaching out, we are willing to attend one joint session. I added a line saying we also wanted individual meetings for each child. No accusation, no drama, just that request anchored in the middle. If they refuse that, we know exactly who they serve, I thought. Lily tugged at my sleeve lightly. Can I stay home the day we go, she asked. She meant no school, no extra stress, just one big scary thing. Yes, I answered without looking at him first, and I stand by that. He didn't object anyway, he just pressed his lips together. When I hit send, my stomach flipped like I had jumped off something. That tiny whoosh sound somehow made everything feel locked in. There, I said, leaning back, hands off the keyboard. Now we wait for them to tell us when to show up. Everyone in the room seemed to tense at that word when. The reply came faster than I expected, barely an hour later. I watched the notification pop up while Lily scrolled on her phone. They answered, I said, not even trying to sound calm. He walked back into the room mid-step and stopped beside me. Lily set her phone down slowly like it might bite. I opened the message and read out the key line. We appreciate your cooperation, we can see all 4 of you Wednesday afternoon. The date sat there, only a couple of days away. It's moving fast, he said under his breath, almost to himself. Fast was good and terrifying at the same time. Where is it? Lily asked, already fidgeting with the edge of her sleeve. I told her the location and time, skipping any extra detail. Do I have to talk first? She pushed, needing a script. No order was listed, I answered, scanning the text again. They'll probably start with grown-ups, they usually do. That word usually slipped out before I could stop it. He caught it and his eyebrows rose a fraction. You've done this kind of thing before, he asked. Not like this, I replied, stomach tightening, but yeah, in another life. That is a story for another day, and not relevant here. Lily headed back upstairs with fast, short steps. She wanted to start writing her page before she lost nerve. I watched her go and wrestled with this sick mix of pride and guilt. She should be worrying about school and games, not legal-flavored meetings. And I am the one who set the powder keg off. He stood across from me, palms flat on the table again. We need to be very careful about how we frame last week, he said. I don't want them focusing on you yelling instead of the damage. Hearing that from him surprised me more than any argument. So you're not planning to throw me under the bus? I asked. He gave a tired half laugh and shook his head once. I'm angry, not stupid, he replied, eyes finally meeting mine. If they decide you're unstable, I lose both kids in different ways. That was raw, and I believe he meant every word. It did not fix anything, but it shifted something in me. Then we stick to facts, I said, grabbing the notebook. No adjectives, just actions and who was where. Your daughter gets that too, I added, watching his face closely. He hesitated at that bit, then nodded slow in reluctant agreement. Fine, I'll tell her to keep it grounded when we talk. That last part snagged my attention. You're meeting her before this? I asked, brows pulling together. Video call tonight, he answered, taking his phone out again. She wants to know what to expect, and honestly I don't blame her. Of course Zoe got a prep session too, with guidance. Then I'm talking to Lily in detail, I said. She needs to be ready for questions that twist things. He didn't stop me, which I appreciate now more than I did then. If we both coach for honesty, maybe this doesn't implode, he muttered. That was the closest thing to hope I had heard in days. Upstairs, I tapped on Lily's door and waited for her answer. Come in, she called, voice strained but trying to sound normal. She sat at her desk with a notebook open and pen poised. Only a few lines covered the page, all crossed out hard. I keep starting and it sounds stupid, she blurted. It doesn't have to sound pretty, I told her. It just needs to sound like you, not like someone else. She sighed and dropped the pen, letting it roll away. What if they think I'm dramatic, she asked, chewing her lip. That I blew everything up because of my games. There it was again, the narrative already seeping into her brain. They might try that angle, I admitted, forcing myself not to sugarcoat. You answer like this is about respect and being safe in your space. Not about stuff, about feeling targeted and scared in your own room. Her eyes filled and she looked down fast to hide it. I'm tired of being the younger kid in every story, she muttered. They act like I'm fragile or making things bigger than they are. She tapped the notebook cover with frustrated little knocks. I want to tell them I'm not perfect either, she added. That surprised me in a good way and a painful way. What do you mean? I asked, sitting on the bed edge. She stared at the floor and spoke slowly. I answered those texts, she said, voice low, the ones you saw. I tried to fit in with people who hate her, and that's on me. Hearing her own admission twisted my heart. You're allowed to admit that without taking all the blame, I replied. Tell them you followed the crowd and regret it now. That doesn't erase what happened after, I added, steady. She nodded, tears clinging but not falling this time. Do you think she'll cry in front of them? She asked suddenly. Probably, I answered honestly, she's smart enough to lean on that. That doesn't make her feelings fake, just complicated. I hated defending Zoe in any way, but I also knew kids hurt messy. If she cries, you still get to speak, I reminded Lily. You aren't required to comfort her in that room. Lily picked the pen up again and wrote slowly this time. Short phrases, no long explanations, just moments. Can you not read it until I'm done? She requested. Sure, I said, raising my hands in surrender. Her trust felt fragile and I didn't want to crush it. Downstairs, I heard his voice through the wall later, talking softly. Zoe's name came up more than once, with careful phrasing. I couldn't hear her, but I could imagine every tone. Part of me wanted to stand outside the door and listen. The other part hated that I wanted that at all. When he came out, his shoulders slumped in a familiar way. How did it go? I asked, not bothering to pretend I hadn't listened. She's scared, he answered, rubbing his temples. She thinks you'll twist everything and make her look unhinged. That word stung because I knew where she learned it. Did you mention the broken equipment at all? I asked quietly. He nodded, gaze drifting toward the hallway like he saw the scene again. She said she lost control for a second and already feels awful, he replied. She kept repeating that you hate her and wanted her gone anyway. Every sentence painted me as some cartoon villain. Did you push on that? I asked, gripping the back of a chair. Ask where she heard I hate her so much. She said she can tell from how I look at her, right? I added. He exhaled slowly and shrugged one shoulder. She said both of you make her feel like a visitor in this house. I won't lie, that jab hit somewhere I didn't want to examine. There were moments I kept her at emotional arm's length for peace. Okay, I said, more to myself than to him. Then in that session, I'll own the distance, not the hatred. He studied me like he wasn't sure if I meant that. I'm not going to sit there and pretend I never messed up, I continued. But I'm also not carrying the entire ladder of everybody's choices. He gave a small nod and leaned against the wall thinking. If you admit you went too far with the eviction thing, he started. I will back you about the rest, including the wrecked room. That sounded like a terrible bargain and a fair one at the same time. Fine, I said, after a beat that felt much longer. I'll say I regret how I handled that night, not the line itself. His shoulders eased a fraction, like he had been waiting for that. We had just rehearsed our own couple's script without saying that out loud. The night before the appointment, Lily slid her notebook across the table. "Read it," she said, arms folded tight over her chest. I opened it and saw short bullet points, no rambling. "Scared in my room, worried it will happen again, feel like nobody believed me at first." The last line caught my breath. "I feel like if I talk, people choose the louder kid anyway." I traced that sentence with my eyes more than once. "Is this okay?" she asked, chewing the inside of her cheek. "It's more than okay," I answered, throat thick. "It sounds like you, that's exactly what matters." I didn't sleep much that night, which probably shocks no one. Every time I tried, my brain started practicing imaginary answers. The counselor's questions, the ex's glares, Zoe's expressions. In some versions, I was calm and measured. In most, I lost my cool before we even got to introductions. Looking back, that restless night was the real turning point for me. Up until then, I kept waiting for someone else to frame the story. In those hours, I realized if I stayed quiet, other people would define me. Angry stepmother, unstable woman, jealous of the original family. So I decided something in the dark, wide awake and exhausted. I would walk into that office and tell the ugliest parts myself. Not to impress anyone or win points, but to stop flinching. I would admit I threw a teenager out for the night and own it. And at the same time, I would not minimize what she did to my kid. Those two truths lived together, and I was done acting like only one fit. Lily's fingers locked around the car door handle before I killed the engine. "We can still turn around," she muttered, eyes fixed on the building entrance. My own stomach flipped, but my mouth said the opposite. "If we walk away now, they write the whole script without us." That was the only reason I opened my door. We stepped inside, and there they were already. Zoe next to her mother, both glued to their phones like nothing. Zoe looked up first, caught Lily's stare, then glanced away fast. Her mother didn't bother hiding the once-over she gave me. "Nice of you to actually show," she tossed out, crossing one leg slowly. Lily shifted closer until her shoulder brushed my arm. "Bathroom," she whispered, needing air more than anything. "Down the hall," the receptionist pointed, barely glancing up from her screen. Zoe watched Lily move past, eyes flicking from her shoes to her face. I saw a flash of something there that was not just hatred. He walked in a few seconds later, breathing too fast for a short walk. He gave his ex a stiff nod, then looked straight at Zoe. "Hey kid," he said, voice softer, hands jammed into his pockets. She stood, hugged him quick, then sat back down near her mom. He took the only empty chair between our two clusters. Nobody talked for a long 20 seconds. You know that heavy silence where someone is daring the other side. Her mother cracked first. "I hope you told your wife not to perform in there," she said. That word lodged under my skin and stayed there. The counselor opened the door right then, which probably saved us. "Family for the 2:30, she called, folder tucked under her arm. We filed in as pairs, like some weird school exercise. Zoe with her mom, Lily shadowing me, my husband drifting in the middle. The seating arrangement alone could have been a diagram. I chose a spot near the end of the couch, Lily beside me. Across from us, Zoe slid into the chair closest to the counselor. Her mother placed a hand lightly on Zoe's shoulder and left it there. He took the space between me and his ex, which felt exactly right and wrong. The counselor looked around like she was mapping fault lines. She introduced herself, short and professional, no small talk. "I'd like each of you to briefly explain why we're here," she said. Her gaze landed on Zoe's mom first, which felt intentional. "Concern for my daughter's emotional safety," came out smooth from that side. She was expelled from the home after a conflict with her stepsister. I bit the inside of my cheek so I would not jump in. "Lily's side?" the counselor asked, turning slightly toward us. Lily's grip tightened on the notebook in her lap. She nodded at me, asking silently if it was time. I gave her a tiny go-ahead and felt my heart race. She unfolded the paper and started reading, voice unsteady. "I don't feel safe in my room with Zoe right now," she read. "I'm scared my stuff or me will get hurt if she's mad. I feel like grown-ups want us to act normal but I can't." Her voice cracked on that last bit and my chest almost split. Zoe rolled her eyes at the word hurt, just enough for me to catch. The counselor caught it too and jotted something in her notes. "Thank you, Lily," she said, nodding once, tone even. "Zoe, can you share what this has been like from your side?" I could feel every muscle in my back stiffen. Zoe sat up a little straighter, hands folded carefully in her lap. "I feel like I'm treated like an intruder in that house," she started. "They act like I'm dangerous when I'm the one who got kicked out." She took a shaky breath at the right moment, not fake, not fully pure. "I thought my dad's place was still my home, guess I was wrong." Her mother squeezed her shoulder, eyes glistening just enough. He stared at the floor, thumbs rubbing against each other. I watched the counselor's face, not theirs, trying to read the reaction. "Did you damage anything during this argument?" the counselor asked quietly. There it was, finally, the part everyone wanted to dance around. Zoe's gaze dropped for the first time. "I lost control," she answered, voice softer. "I knocked over her stuff. I was angry and hurt, and it got physical with objects." That phrase came straight out of adult coaching, you could tell. "I feel horrible about it now," she added, which I believed halfway. "Clarify physical," the counselor pressed, pen hovering above the paper. "Was anyone touched, pushed, cornered, anything like that?" Zoe shook her head, quick, firm, no hesitation. "No one was hurt," she said, looking up at last. She screamed at me, then her mom told me to leave. My hands curled into fists on my knees before I even noticed. The counselor shifted her attention toward me like a spotlight. "Walk me through your actions that evening," she requested. I swallowed and decided to follow the plan I made at 3 a.m. I told her to pack a bag and stay at her mother's that night. No excuses, no padding, just that ugly sentence out in the room. Lily's head turned toward me fast, the familiar part still stinging her. Zoe's mom leaned back with a tiny, satisfied smile, exactly what she wanted. He glanced sideways at me then, like waiting to see how far I'd go. "I regret doing that at that hour, I don't regret setting a boundary." The counselor's eyebrows lifted a hair. "What boundary?" she asked, leaning forward a fraction. "If you deliberately destroy someone else's things, you don't stay under my supervision," I answered. "You can't expect the other kid to sleep 10 feet away afterward." My voice wobbled once and I let it. "So your reaction was about protection, not punishment," the counselor summed up. "Both," I admitted, because I was done pretending to be saintly. I was furious and I wanted her gone for a while. It wasn't calm parenting, it was a line thrown in anger. Saying that out loud felt like stepping onto thin ice on purpose. Her mother jumped on that vulnerability instantly. "Exactly," she cut in, leaning forward. "She admits it wasn't about Zoe's well-being. It was about anger and owning the house and making a point." The counselor lifted a hand toward her without looking away from me. "What did you think would happen once Zoe walked out?" she asked. "In that moment I only thought about my kid shaking on the floor," I answered. "I thought space would stop things from getting worse for everyone." I wanted to add I expected her dad to cushion the landing. I bit that part back because throwing him under now would backfire. I didn't think about paperwork and therapists, I thought about doors and locks. The counselor nodded slowly like she made a mental note. Then she turned to him for the first time in a while. "Where were you that night during all this?" she asked. "In the house but late to the blow-up," he answered, throat tight. "Since then I've been stuck between wanting both girls near me." He wasn't wrong, and hearing it phrased that way hurt anyway. "Do you believe either child is in immediate danger with the other?" she asked him. He hesitated, and that pause was the worst thing he could do. "Not physically," he finally replied, choosing every word with care. "But emotionally, yeah, they trigger each other hard." That answer made Lily's shoulders fold inward a little. Like she had just been handed equal responsibility in this chaos. The counselor noticed and shifted focus back to the kids. "Lily, when you imagine Zoe coming back to that house, what happens?" she asked. Lily stared at her notebook again like the answer lived there. "I feel my heart racing and I think about her near my door," she said. "I start picturing more stuff getting smashed and no one stopping it. I also think everyone will yell at me for overreacting again." Her voice sped up near the end and she blinked fast. "That's when I want to hide somewhere else," she finished, shoulders trembling. Then it was Zoe's turn with a similar question. "Picture staying at your dad's place again while Lily is there," the counselor prompted. Zoe sucked in a breath and looked straight at her father. I imagine her mom watching everything I do and waiting to pounce, she said. I imagine any mistake I make being used to kick me out again. She was good, I'll give her that. Half truth, half performance, all very effective in that setting. I don't trust that house to be fair, she added. Her mother sniffed quietly, very practiced, eyes shining at the ceiling. The counselor wrote a long note after that one. Right now, forcing them under one roof seems unsafe for both, the counselor concluded. My stomach plunged at that word, even though I saw it coming. I recommend a pause on overnights at your home for Zoe, she continued, looking at me. Short daytime visits only, supervised transitions, and structured communication. Her mother's lips twitched like she had just won a case. I heard Lily's breath hitch next to me. Not relief, not joy, something more tangled. Zoe's face flushed, shocked, maybe realizing this sword cut her too. I don't want to only see him on schedules, she blurted. He's barely in my life as it is now. That cheap shot landed. He flinched like she actually slapped him in front of everyone. I'm trying, he rasped, voice breaking more than once. I'm juggling 2 homes and now all this, he gestured helplessly. The counselor cut in again before it spiraled further. Blame won't move this forward, she reminded us, tone firmer than before. Today is to set temporary safety steps, not decal. Our permanent villains. That word villains hit like a direct look my way. Parents will need parallel conversations with me without the teenagers present, she added. After that we reassess contact levels. Her mother bristled at parallel, wanting everything out in the open for drama. I want it noted that Zoe wasn't the one who escalated to expulsion, she snapped. She made a mistake, the adult reaction made it traumatic. The counselor jotted another line, unfazed, then turned to me. Would you consider apologizing to Zoe for how that night ended, she asked. I knew this question was coming and still felt my chest clench. I'm willing to apologize for how I handled the timing and tone, I answered. I'm not apologizing for refusing to let my kid sleep beside someone who just trashed her things. Zoe's mother scoffed loudly, but the counselor focused on my first part. That sounds like progress if it's sincere, she said calmly. I don't want her apology, Zoe cut in, jaw tight, eyes wet. I want to not be terrified I'll get kicked out again anytime she's mad. That landed heavy, because underneath the dramatics there was a real fear. I saw my own worst side reflected in that sentence. I also saw the way her mom leaned into it for leverage. The session wrapped after that with more logistics than feelings. Follow-up appointments, separate slots, phone numbers confirmed, the whole clinical routine. By the time we stood, my legs felt like they belonged to someone else. Lily clung to her paper like a shield as we walked out. You could feel everyone bracing for round 2 in the parking lot. Zoe and her mom made it to their car first. He hovered near them, torn, one hand on his own keys. Zoe hugged him again, longer this time, face buried in his chest. Her mother caught my eye over Zoe's shoulder and smiled thinly. If you've ever seen someone enjoy moral high ground, you know that look. When they drove off, he walked toward our car slowly. Lily slid into the back seat without a word and buckled in. I stayed standing on the asphalt, arms folded tight across my chest. Well, I said, because silence was going to eat me alive. That went about how your ex wanted, minus the overnights part. He dropped into the passenger seat instead of taking the wheel. She didn't want that recommendation, he muttered, staring out the windshield. She wanted full access back under our roof, no restrictions. That was the one thing that didn't go her way today. He sounded drained, not triumphant, which surprised me. Did you hear how they framed me though? I pressed. As the unstable gatekeeper with too much power over the house. He rubbed his face, palms dragging slow, like he could scrub the day off. They saw an angry parent under pressure, he said, choosing each word. They also saw a kid who admitted to wrecking stuff and feeling bad afterward. That's the part you're hanging on to, I snapped, heat rising. That she feels bad now, not what she actually did. My voice got louder and Lily shifted in the back seat. I lowered it quick, but the damage was done. Can we not fight here? She whispered, fingers curling in her sweatshirt. We drove home with the radio off because of course we did. Every stoplight felt like a chance to bail from this entire life. At the house, Lily bolted for the stairs as soon as we walked in. I heard her door close and a muffled thump like she dropped onto the bed. He stayed in the kitchen, leaning on the counter, arms crossed. "I need to know something straight," he said finally, not looking at me. "If Zoe accepts your apology for that night, would you ever let her stay again?" The question hit like a punch because it exposed the real split. "I could, with strict rules and cameras and doors that lock from inside," I replied. "I will not pretend nothing happened, not for holidays, not for image." He laughed once, no humor in it at all. "Cameras," he repeated, shaking his head. "You realize how that sounds, right? A prison, not a home." I stepped closer, anger and fear fighting for the steering wheel. Better a monitored house than my kid terrified in her own bed. He spun toward me then, eyes wild, voice rising. "And what about my kid's fear?" he asked, words hitting fast. "She thinks one wrong move means exile because that's what happened. She doesn't see nuance, she sees a stepmom with all the power." That last line cut deeper than anything the counselor said. "So your solution is what?" I shot back, hands up. "Bring her back full time and tell Lily to suck it up. Let everyone walk on eggshells and hope nothing else gets smashed." He shook his head, pacing a tight line between table and sink. "My solution might mean we don't live under the same address forever." Everything went very quiet in my head after that sentence. "Say that again," I managed because I wanted to be sure. He stopped pacing and met my eyes finally. "If Zoe can't ever feel secure there and you won't budge, I might need my own place," he said. "Split time with Lily, see Zoe without everybody burning each other down." It felt like the ground shifted 1 inch to the left. "Separate houses because your daughter faced a consequence?" I asked slowly. "This is the line, not all the smaller things before." He threw his hands up, frustrated, near the edge himself. "This is the line where I lose one of them either way," he answered. We stared at each other for a long beat, both breathing too fast. Then Lily's door opened upstairs, and we heard her feet on the hallway. "Are you leaving?" she called down, voice tight, already braced. That sound snapped whatever was about to come out of my mouth. We both moved toward the stairs at the same time and stopped. He stepped back, letting me answer first. "I don't know yet," I called up, forcing the words out. It was probably the most honest thing I said all week. She walked down slowly until she could see both our faces. "You look like you already decided something," she said, eyes narrowed. She was right. He had decided he might move out, I had decided I wouldn't fold. The counselor had decided our house wasn't neutral ground anymore. Zoe had decided I was the villain in her origin story. And Lily had decided that adults choose the loudest pain in the room. "I wish I could tell you we fixed it right there. That we hugged, cried, made careful plans," updated the counselor. "Instead, we drifted into separate corners of the house like strangers." Lily went back to her room and locked the door. He slept on the couch again, this time without even grabbing a blanket. He dragged a suitcase to the front door and Lily stopped halfway down the stairs. "Is that for a trip or for leaving?" she asked, voice scraping. He froze, fingers tight on the handle, eyes flicking between us. "It's temporary," he answered, not convincing anyone in that hallway. That word dropped like a brick between all three of us. Lily walked down the rest of the steps one at a time. "You're choosing," she said, not shouting, which made it sharper. Her hands were empty, which felt wrong somehow, nothing to cling to. "I'm choosing not to destroy both of you by staying stuck," he replied. He looked at me then, like I was the jury on that line. I leaned against the wall because my knees did not trust themselves. "You found a place already?" I asked, trying to keep my tone steady. "A short lease near Zoe's school," he answered, eyes dropping. Lily flinched at that and I felt my stomach twist. He had searched while sleeping on our couch. "So you just decided and packed," Lily said, arms crossing tight. He reached toward her shoulder, then stopped halfway, hand hanging. "I talked to the counselor this morning before work," he explained. "She thinks 2 homes for now might calm things down." The way he leaned on that recommendation made me want to scream. I glanced at the suitcase, then at him. "You agreed without me in that room," I pointed out. "She met with me alone, she wanted both sides separately," he insisted. "I told you solo sessions were coming, remember?" he added, almost pleading. I remembered, but not like this. Lily rubbed her wrist again, nails digging into the skin. Am I supposed to come there too? She asked. Sometimes if you want we can split time, he answered carefully. He was so afraid to push that she heard the wobble anyway. You're not losing me, he added, voice cracking. She laughed once, humorless, eyes wet but stubborn. That's exactly what it feels like, she said. I lose you here and I don't trust there. She turned abruptly and walked back to her room. Her door closed harder than she meant, I could tell. He watched the staircase like hoping she'd change her mind. She can stay here full time at first, he offered. I'm not taking her away, I'd never do that. The problem was, it already felt like a way. Even if the mailing address said otherwise. Did you tell Zoe you're moving? I asked. Yeah, he replied, dragging a hand through his hair. She thinks it's because of you, not the situation. Not surprising, I muttered, heat rising behind my eyes. Did you correct her or just let that sit? He frowned, shoulders lifting like he carried something heavy. I told her it was my call, he answered. She said you push me, you always do, her words. My jaw clenched at that because part of it stung true. I had pushed him, just not in the way she meant. He checked his watch like there was a deadline for heartbreak. I need to go before traffic gets insane, he murmured. We just stared at each other, 12 different arguments stuck. You can still change your mind, I heard myself say. Even though I knew he wouldn't. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. If I stay, I'll resent you every time Zoe cries, he said. If I go, I'll resent myself for hurting Lily. I almost lucked. He did because that was the most honest sentence yet. This is me picking the regret I can live with. That line cut me in a weird sideways way. Because I was doing the same thing, just from the other direction. I'm not going to chase you out, I answered, arms still folded. I'm also not signing up for another round of Lily's things destroyed. We both knew that was the anchor under all the words. He leaned in and hugged me quickly, more habit than romance. It landed somewhere between goodbye and see you later. I'll text when I'm settled, he said, stepping back. He grabbed the suitcase handle, opened the door and walked out. I listened to the car start and did not follow. Upstairs, the floor creaked near Lily's doorway. Is he gone? She called down, voice small again. Yeah, I answered, throat thick, he's heading to the new place. She came down slowly, hoodie sleeves over her hands. Her eyes went straight to the empty patch by the door. He'll be back for you, I said, knowing how weak that sounded. He's not abandoning anybody, he's just splitting his time. She studied me like she was grading a speech. Do you believe that, or are you saying what I'm supposed to hear? She asked. I didn't have a clean answer. I believe he loves you, I said finally. I don't love how he's handling everything, but I believe that part. She exhaled long and shaky and leaned against the wall. Can we put his stuff in a box? She asked. Not throw it out, just not stare at it every day. So that's what we did that afternoon. Not dramatic, not rage-fueled, just slow and weirdly practical. Shoes by the door, jacket on the hook, random things on the counter. We filled a container and pushed it into the coat closet. The space looked cleaner and somehow much emptier. Later that week, Lily came home holding a folded note. The counselor gave this to me after school, she said. She placed it on the table like it might explode. It was a short summary of next steps in professional language. One sentence stuck out more than the rest. Father will maintain contact with both children from separate residences for now. Reading that printed on official paper hit differently than hearing it. Lily snorted softly and pointed at another line farther down. Stepmother reports ongoing concern about trust and safety, she read. So that was my new title in writing. Is it bad that I'm relieved she isn't forcing visits here? Lily asked. No, I answered, shaking my head. Feeling safer at home is not something to feel guilty about. She studied my face, checking if I meant it. I still feel bad for her, she admitted, barely audible. That's the part people online love to skip, by the way. The fact that Lily can be scared of Zoe and still pity her. It would be easier if one was pure villain and the other saint. Real life does not care about our need for tidy roles. Everyone bleeds different and hurts different people. A few days after he moved, my phone buzzed with an unknown text. The preview showed only 3 words and Zoe's name at the top. Against my better judgment, I opened it. "You broke him," she wrote, no greeting, no punctuation. My hand tightened around the phone so hard it hurt. There was a second bubble, then another line. "Hope your kid enjoys winning." Nothing else, no follow-up, no emoji, nothing. I stared at those words and felt a mix of rage and sadness. Because in her mind, this was a competition I designed. I typed out 5 different answers and erased each one. One angry paragraph about the destroyed rig. One long explanation about boundaries and consequences. One single sentence, "You have no idea what he chose." In the end, I deleted everything and locked the screen. Not answering felt wrong and right at the same time. Wrong because silence leaves space for people to keep inventing. Right because nothing I wrote would land the way I meant. She's a teenager marinating in her mother's spin. I am the adult who should know when a conversation is pointless. When Lily found out about the message, she reacted sideways. "At least she texted you, not me," she said, shrugging stiffly. Her friends already posted stuff about me being spoiled. She scrolled through her phone, thumb moving too fast. I saw one of the screenshots before she hid the screen. There was a post from some classmate. "Imagine wrecking your sister's toy and getting your dad a new apartment," it read. Laughing reactions underneath, people picking sides with half information. Lily laughed too, this sharp, incredulous sound, then shut the app. "I'm going to delete half these people," she muttered. Part of me wanted to take her phone and do it myself. Round up every name, cut access, build a bubble. But I know what happens when adults clamp down too hard. "You get to decide who sees your life," I told her instead. "Not them, not me, not your father, just you." We spent the next weekend reviewing what we could afford. Not a huge shopping spree, just careful choices with saved money. Lily picked a basic monitor and a sturdy desk this time. "I don't want fancy right now," she said, hand hovering, "just something that works." That sentence carried more weight than she realized. When we set it up, she hesitated before turning it on. "You think I'm clinging to this too much?" she asked. Like everyone else was whispering about priorities. "I think you're allowed to have something that makes you happy," I answered. "As long as it doesn't become armor you never take off." She glanced at me, eyebrow raised. "Pretty deep for a Tuesday," she said, but she was smiling a little. She sat in the chair and tested the controls carefully. Her shoulders came down an inch when the home screen appeared. Then she still locked her door before starting a game. That's when it really hit me how far this went. The automatic lock, the way she checked it twice. She shouldn't have to secure her bedroom like a bank vault. And yes, I know my reaction contributed to that hypervigilance. My effort to protect her also taught her the world can tilt overnight. He visits every few days now. Sometimes Lily goes with him to his place for dinner. Sometimes she stays here and they FaceTime instead. We haven't pushed her either way, we let her pace it. The counselor actually approved that part, for whatever that's worth. We talk more politely now and less honestly. Logistics, school schedules, who's paying for what, future appointments. We avoid saying Zoe's name unless we have to. When we do, he still flinches a little. I probably do too. You might be wondering if I miss Zoe. The ugly answer is yes and no, both at once. I miss the version of her I thought we could reach. The girl who joked about songs and asked about recipes sometimes. Not the one who ground her heel into my kids' joy. If this were a neat story, I'd end with reconciliation. Maybe a tearful apology in another office someday. A picture of both girls sharing a couch, scrolling together. Real life looks more like cautious silence and separate addresses for now. No one gets a gold star at the end. So now I sit at the kitchen table after Lily falls asleep. Half a cup of cold coffee nearby, phone face down. I scroll through this post, adding and deleting details. Trying to be fair, trying not to rewrite myself as hero or monster. Just someone who made a hard call and is still not sure. That night I kicked Zoe out lives rent-free in my head. Sometimes I replay it and wish I'd taken a breath. Sometimes I replay it and think, if I'd backed down, what next? Would Lily have believed I valued her safety at all? Would Zoe have stopped or just learned I'd never actually act? That's why I'm here asking strangers who don't know us. Not for legal advice, we already have professionals hovering. But for that blunt internet mirror I don't get at home. Did I blow up a family that could have been saved? Or did I finally draw a line no one else would touch?